All
What's
right,
up,
I think
everybody?
you're live. What's up?
Yeah, we're live. We're live. Chaz, how you doing, buddy?
Hi, I'm doing fantastic, Mark. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm really good. Did you do you have kids? You celebrate Mother's Day?
Oh yeah, I got two kids. One is 2.5, and one is 1 year old. And
Yeah.
it was an incredible Mother's Day yesterday. Actually, my wife's family came in from Colorado. She has a brother out there, so they came in. We did a nice dinner with everybody at a very nice restaurant. So beautiful
Lovely.
Mother's Day.
Lovely. Yeah, this
How about
was
over by you?
yeah, it was our my wife's first Mother's Day as a mom.
Oh,
Um
God bless! That's incredible. That is
yeah,
incredible.
yeah. It's
How old? How old is your?
he's 5 months.
Wow.
Um
God bless you.
yeah, it was pretty wild. You could tell that like obviously, I imagine Mother's Day means so much to you every year, but like this meant so much to my wife because it was just like
It's amazing.
it's her new identity, and she just
Yeah.
kept telling our son, she's like, "Thank you for making me a mom." So
Oh, that's
yeah,
beautiful. I'm guessing, Mark, based on 5 months old, are you sleeping a lot over there or what?
I am guilty to say yes.
Good. That is amazing. That's
I
amazing.
feel
That's
terrible
good.
because I know there's some parents who are screaming into their computers right now, like, "I didn't sleep until he was a year old," but
Oh, you're very blessed. You're very blessed.
yeah, yeah. My Aura Ring tracks it and says like, "Hey, congratulations, you slept great last night." And I'm like,
Oh man, I'm jealous.
"Yep,
It's funny. I got the 1 year old and the one that's going to be turning 3 in August. And it's funny. The older one's actually the one who's been waking up. My son Tommy, he's up, multiple times throughout the night. He wants a snack. He wants something here and there. So I hope it stays that way for you. I won't say anything else.
I was gonna say I've heard that happens. I've heard that happens, and because they start to get opinions, and they're like, "Oh no, I don't
Oh
want to
yeah,
be asleep."
awesome.
Yeah, well, let's jump in. Really pumped
Yeah,
about this. Chaz, remind me, did we come up
sure.
with this concept when we were at LeadsCon together?
Yeah, we were at LeadsCon. It was great to see you. And I want to start by saying I've always been impressed by you, Mark. And you're like a celebrity now. When we first met way back when, I always thought you were super bright. I was super impressed with what you were up to with Balto and everything. But I've watched as the years have gone on and gone on. And yeah, I'm starstruck, man. You're a celebrity now in this space.
So, thank you, buddy. And here you are running the company.
Ah, please. It's all right. It's good. It's good. It's a lot of fun. I think you did. I think we're cut from the same cloth in that we have a lot of fun with what we do, and it's problem solving, every day. So it's
Yeah. Well,
keep
let's jump into it because I think that part of what people are excited about, and I think one of the things that you and I have like a special, like we truly love, is like
sure.
getting into the details of like how do you set up really good systems. And I think both of us, we enjoy like talking about high level stuff and strategy and where the markets are going, but also it's like how do you set up your systems to have a high connect rate,
Sure.
calls that you're talking to the right person with healthy lists, and then you get them, on the phone or having some interaction, and then you're able to maximize that conversion. How do you make sure that a team is doing that at scale? And
Sure.
consistently, that you have maybe a slow month or a bad month. Like, what do you do to recover? So those are the sort of tactics I know folks are interested in, and that we're going to go deep in today.
Yeah, I'm excited to go deep. Like I said, I want to go full spectrum. I think there's a lot we're going to cover. Bringing in the title, even. We're talking about from connect to commit, right? So optimizing everything along the way, making sure you're connecting first, but just the connection isn't enough. You know that, Mark. You need the ability to say the right things, to have the acumen, have the energy, which is a huge one I like to talk about. I'm sure we'll get to carry that forward and to get the conversion. Otherwise, you could connect all day and, you're still not going to see the result. So it really is two pronged, and there's a lot that needs to happen to be successful. And I think we're going to share a lot of value here today. I think we're going to show people some really good things that are tangible they could take away after watching this event.
Let's do it. So to start, folks, if you're in the chat, I want to let you know you can ask a question, you can do a comment, you can do an emoji at any time. If anytime you hear Chaz say something you don't like, just make a puke emoji.
I love it.
Put
Oh,
that
wait, wait,
put
somebody
that
put
in
no,
the chat.
no. That quick,
Heckling,
huh? Oh,
unlimited heckling Chaz is okay. And
it's
then
fine. You're tough
and then
skin.
I'm curious to hear, are folks fully in person, remote, or hybrid? I know sometimes
Sure.
people feel like a little intimidated putting that in, but just like drop it in the chat. Are you remote, in person, or hybrid? Let's get this thing going. And Chad, let's kick it
Love
off
that.
over to you. Um,
Sure.
Fully remote. Thank you, Mohammed.
No,
I'll make
thank
sure
you.
that we address how like you get high energy when you're remote. Justin, remote. Appreciate that as well. Like energy can be tough remote, and
Oh
as well as
yeah.
like managing these scalable systems. Um, so Chad, let's kick it off. Can you give us some principles on setting up your system to get the connects? Like, what are some
Oh
of the
yeah.
things people should be thinking about?
Yeah, sure. And we could start too with the remote and the mindset too. I think we'll start there and I'll dive right in. But, obviously pre COVID and now remote has become more prevalent than ever. And I think it's only getting more and more popular. But there is, Mark, there is some challenges there. I think when we first met, you came out to this state of the art call center we had built in the solar industry. We had bells ringing, music playing, people dancing. I used to call myself the DJ at 8 a.m. People would be walking in, with their coffee and, ready to get to their desk. And I'd have like EDM and house music playing. And immediately, whoa, they'd be like shocked awake and ready to, dive in. So I think it comes down to mindset, with the remote, you have to kind of psych yourself out, so to speak, because maybe you're sitting in a quiet room, you're getting to your desk, you're checking a couple emails, and, how do you get that energy and excitement on every phone call, So you really have to get in your head and warm up. And, we encourage our teams, a lot of our clients that, we kind of work with, and I've seen a lot of them be successful, is they want their teams to start dialing right away in the morning. Maybe not take as much time to sit back, check emails. It's important to do those things. But, when you call for that first half an hour of the day, it kind of gets your voice warmed up. It gets you warmed up for the rest of the day to be able to carry that, energy forward. Is that something you've seen, Mark, or any strategies in terms of the remote to get motivated?
Yeah. And folks, feel free to put in the chat. What do you do to get the energy up, whether you're
Yeah,
remote or in
I'd love to
person? Like,
hear.
throw it in there. Chaz, I'll start with that last thing you mentioned of not waiting to do the dials.
Sure.
I could not agree with that more. And it's funny. I'm not kidding. I'm thinking about one rep who was awesome, and she was great. Actually, you worked with her, um,
Oh,
and
awesome.
she would get to the office, and she would just like pace around and make herself like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and just like would take. I'm not even kidding. An hour and a half, 2 hours before she sat down.
Oh man.
Um, and she was great, but she would kind of psych herself up, and then when she actually gets down, it's like it's hard to go do the work.
Right.
There's this awesome book that I'm reading right now, Stephen Pressfield, called The War of Art, and basically it's about we all have this mental resistance that we're fighting, and it's the voices that we hear all day of like maybe I'm a little tired, I don't really want to do that, or I feel maybe a little off, or why don't I go do this other thing first? And basically, the point of his book is call it out. Call out that is resistance, and that is your
Yes.
enemy. And the enemy is fighting you, stopping you from doing the important work you want to do. And he has this ritual, and he has a super funny ritual. He like sits down, and he has all these little like kind of characters, like bobbleheads on his desk, and he points them all in a certain direction to like help line them up, and then he goes. And the idea is like starting off your day, getting right to the work, and making sure that you are really consistent about that is one of the most important things that you can do when you're remote to get the stuff done you need to get done.
That's right. And I think that's so important, right? Because otherwise you're stuck. There's always going to be that next little thing that's going to buy you a little bit more time. Oh, I got to check this email, or oh, I saw this happen, or, and the longer you do it, if you wait an hour and a half, like you said, with that, individual, now you're kind of, you're a little bit through your day. Maybe now you're getting through those first couple phone calls. Maybe there's a couple of rejections in there. And now you're kind of set back where you could have already gotten through that an hour and a half ago and been on fire and then flying through your day by that point. So I didn't plan we were going to touch on this one, but I'm happy. Thank you, audience, and thank you, Mark, for posing the question. Remote versus in person. I think in person it can kind of go without saying. You're there, you kind of feel the energy. For all the call center managers tuning in, it is amazing if you have a little bit of music playing. We used to do a stand-up bonus, so every so often to get people out of their chair, standing, getting the blood flowing. So I don't think we need to go too deep on the in-person, Mark, but definitely when you're at home, it's you against yourself, and you have to be able to know what needs to happen to overcome that.
Yep. And
Um,
I think that one of the things that folks can do, regardless of your work environment, is just say, like, picture what does a great work environment look like? Like, think about the type of work that you're about to do. You're about to be engaging with a lot of prospects in order to book leads and get revenue. And you're about to trudge through a lot of, like, hopefully not, disconnected numbers, hopefully not wrong people, but there's some of them's going to
sure.
come up. Some of them's going to come up, and you're going to then, if you're lucky enough, you have to trudge through the nose. You have to get through the
Right.
nose. So, like,
Right.
how do you set up an environment like that? I'll say, Chaz, when you were at that solar company, I visited you. Your
Sure.
desk literally was elevated like it was on a DJ stand. Like,
Yeah. There you
it
go.
was
Yeah.
like it was like you have a
I love
DJ
it.
in Vegas, and they're set up at the
Oh
end of the
man.
pool, and they're on that little DJ stand. Like, you were set up like a DJ stand. Um,
Yeah.
and I think folks, like, I'll reiterate the importance of, like, music and energy. Um, I dial so much better with music and energy. I got myself a nice little pair of headphones, and I use that to crush through work. If you're thinking, oh no, I don't, but then won't the prospects hear it? Won't the prospects hear the music? Like,
Right. Yeah.
trust me, that is a good problem to have.
Right.
Right? Think about all the calls that you hear where, like, you're like, that person sounds like they are in a soulless, dark room,
Right.
right?
Right.
But if you hear and they have, Doja Cat on the background, you're like, well, this is interesting. This is interesting.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. Whatever gets the energy up.
You're on my next. You just triggered it for me, Mark. Let's keep going forward here. So, something that's super important is as you're going through these conversations, right? You're buying, I always say this to everyone I speak with, you're buying the next 5 seconds to 10 seconds of that person's attention span, right? Not so much maybe if you're working real time leads, warm leads, people who are inquiring, more so than maybe some older, data you're working through or maybe some cold calling. But, especially if somebody's not expecting to hear from you, you're buying their attention span. So your energy levels, how you enter that call, what they hear in the background, the inflection of your voice, the words that you're saying, right? Like how you're opening, what's your opening line. You're buying yourself time to continue along that conversation. And I think Mark, you're really probably going to be the expert here with Balto and the amazing technology you guys have. You've analyzed tons of data. I'd say millions. I don't know, Bill. I don't know how much minutes of audio you guys have reviewed, but how do you feel about that piece? And how you enter the phone call.
Yeah. I think it's funny. One of the pieces of kind of writing that have influenced me a lot was it's that negotiation book. I have it right here. The FBI hostage, Chris Voss.
Oh yes,
What's it
yes.
called? Chris Voss.
Heard the name. I don't know off the top of my
Ah,
head. I know Chris Voss. I've heard Chris Voss.
I want to get it for everyone. Hold on.
Go
Chris
ahead.
Voss negotiation book. It is Never Split the Difference.
There you
Um,
go. Yep.
and he talks about what he calls the midnight DJ voice. By the way, coming back to music here.
Oh yeah.
And the idea is that, like, it should be, like, resonant, it should be smooth, it should be, like, under control. And I think that actually that is a really good inflection to bring to the call. Our VP of sales, who's our current VP of sales, started out, on the phones, pounding dials, and I would tell him that, like, he sounds like a clown because he'd be like, "Hey, it's Tim. How you doing today?" And I'm like, I do not want to hear that. That is not
It's a
pleasant
clown.
to my ears.
Sure.
So you can bring the energy without sounding like a clown.
Sure.
So, I'll
Sure.
do midnight DJ. And that, by the way, means that you don't need to talk fast. I think that, like, sales reps start the interaction like they're on borrowed time. They start the interaction like, I have 5 seconds to get this sentence out, or else I can get shut down. But, like,
Great point.
you
Yeah.
gotta sound like you deserve to be there. So, I'll say, like, hey, Chaz, it's Mark Bernstein. How you doing? Like, it's a
Okay.
little warm. It's a little warm. I'm not, like, tired, but I'm also not speeding through it.
Right.
Right?
And you're not flat and hey, Chad. Once you get to call number, 150 for the day, you kind of start to lose steam. Hey,
Yep.
Mike, how are you? I'm calling about, your property.
Yep.
It's like super flat and tired. So keeping the energy high, consistently. And like you said, yeah, I like that analogy of the clown. You don't want to
Yeah.
be too, hey, Mark, how you doing? This is 555. Clowns are us.
Yep.
Too clowny, too much. So yeah, so I think that's amazing. Yeah, that's a great start. So, obviously we're talking now about once you've connected, getting to the phone call, and you're getting to, start going through your script, which I think we should really start maybe during this event, Mark. We'll just tear apart the script from, beginning, middle, end. We don't have to go too crazy because we'd probably be here for 3 days because I know we can get really granular. But yeah, it really starts with the connect too. How are you maximizing, getting people on the phone, the proper people at the right times, and I think, again, we're still at the beginning here. Speed to lead, I think everyone in the industry knows it, they've heard it, and they know how important it is. It really is, the game changer that, can do a lot for you, so a lot of people out there might be hand dialing and manually dialing, and picking up the phone, dialing the digits and waiting for the phone to ring, which if you have like an email notification, let's just say for a real time lead or something, maybe that's working for you on some level. But really, when you start to use technology where you can auto dial or create an outreach, that's automatic within seconds to that record, and you pair that with kind of decentralizing, those opportunities where maybe you've got different teams that are different skill levels, but when that lead comes in, it serves it to the proper team, it calls it within seconds, and you're able to try and get that person on the phone. I mean, that's the starting point. This is like the tip of the iceberg where people are impressed. A lot of the times when people inquire, they'll pick up the phone. Wow, they're already, well, yeah, I just filled that out 2 seconds ago, And I'll tell you what, it's 2025. If you're not that quick to get them within a few seconds, somebody else is, So, Mark, let's touch on that for a minute. Speed to lead, using technology to automate your outreach. I know at Call Tools we do have the auto dialing technology where you're able to have the system queue up leads and opportunities and call them, and then only connect you with a live person. But what are you seeing out there in terms of speed to lead and how important that really is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the most important things. And what you said, Chaz, I think is totally right. And it's fun when you actually are the person making that dial or you're
Yeah.
listening to the recording after. I'll literally hear the prospect chuckle like, whoa, you did it. I didn't think
Yeah.
you do it. We had for a while this awesome system that I've been telling Balto I really want to get it back. I want to do it just for us internally. And it was on our website when you fill a demo request, a 60-second timer would start. It says, we will call you within 60
Oh,
seconds. And the little timer went around and people like will look at it and be like, no, you won't. There's no freaking way. And then when they actually get the dial, they're expecting it. They're ready for it. They're like, it kind
wow.
of like started it with a magic trick, of like, you see how I did
Great.
that? I called you within 60 seconds.
These guys must know about technology if they're able to get to me this quick.
Yes, yes. Yes. And they remember what they were thinking when they filled out the lead form. Think about
Mm,
all the times where, one of your reps calls someone, they go, oh, I don't remember filling that out. So like I don't remember filling that out is the worst place you can be. I remember filling that out, but I don't really remember why or what I was thinking and what my interest was is the second worst place you could be. I
sure.
remember filling it out and I literally had the thought and the desire 1 minute ago is the best place you can be.
They're hot.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So just like when you have an inbound request of any sort, like we actually have internally a Slack channel. So we kind of set up an integration with our
Sure.
dialer and it pings the Slack channel and it goes out to all the reps. It says inbound lead. And the first rep who comments got it gets that lead.
Right in.
So
Yep.
yeah, I saw Muhammad earlier post about gamification, in the chat. And he was saying, gamification is one of the good things. Like gamifying speed to lead and being like, it's yours. We actually had, this is a real story, one rep who would have that channel open in a separate window all day. So he would actually
Ready to go.
claim all the leads. And the other reps started getting frustrated. Like they're like, this guy is too fast. And it's like, well, what a good problem to have.
Right. That is a quality problem to
Yep.
have. Maybe you should learn from him. That's what
Yes.
we always say too. When you see the top performer in any organization, any sales team, maybe you should watch really closely what they're doing because there's a reason why they're on top, and there's a reason why they're doing, so well with what they're at. I think the stat is, and it always changes. I think I mentioned it on a podcast I was on last week, but it changes all through the years. The number for a long time was, when somebody sees you and they're going to make a decision, they have to have subconsciously seen you about 6 to 7 times before they're like, okay, this is the person I want to fill out the lead form for. This is the person I want to work with. Now in today's society, I think shorter attention spans is up to like 15 times, So this is all pre them completing the lead. But at that point, when they've already gone through that and they've thought of you and they found you and they filled out that form and they've made that inquiry, they want to hear from you. They're excited, So when you get them that quick, it's like the wow factor. And then let's continue along, Mark. So, a lot of time if you get somebody that quick, the odds of you getting them on the phone in that first interaction on speed to lead, if you get to them within the first 5 minutes, they say it's an increased likelihood that you're going to get them on that first call by 500%. Like a huge number. If you get to them after 5 minutes, it's 500% less likely they're going to answer that first phone call.
Yep.
So I think speed to lead, we touched on that. That's super critical. So out there, I would analyze. So for the audience, right, let's give them a little value here. I would analyze, right, are you tracking your leads, where they're coming in, how long it's taking for them to come in? Sometimes websites get a little funky, so can you make sure your website is actually posting that lead to your CRM in real time? Or is there some kind of process or something hanging up where you're getting that 5 minutes later, you're already outside of that 5 minute window? So I think analyzing the technology and then having the proper technology that once it does hit where it needs to go, you either have somebody watching it like a hawk, like Mark said, or you have an automated system that's going to initialize that first point of contact.
Amazing. And Chaz, I'll talk about that 500% increase in just like what I've seen.
Yeah, there we go.
What we tell our folks at Balto is that whenever you get bad news from a customer, right? You have a customer and they say, I'm having an issue, or they say, I need to reduce seats, or whatever, you get bad news, you should call that person right away, like the second. And the reason is because you know that they're free. They just sent you the email. So you know that, like just a second ago, they were not doing anything except for sending you an email, right?
Right.
So it's the same concept, the lead form, that when they see the lead form, you know for a split second that they're free, that they're available because they just sent it. And then the chance that they remain free goes down every single minute until past 10 minutes. I think past 10 minutes, I'm trying to remember what the data is, but like very low chance you connect with them, like goes to standard connect rates. So, and that's because in 10 minutes, they're not just sitting there. They're doing the next thing. But they're not doing
it makes tons of sense. You know what? I'm happy you reframed that for me because I haven't really looked at it in that context, but it probably applies to any type of outreach, right? Support, help, billing. If they're sending you that inquiry, they're there and they want to hear from you, So the more you can give that wow factor, whether it's a new lead, existing customer, or an inquiry or a support ticket, it kind of disarms, the severity of the situation. If it is, something they're upset with or needing help with, or in the case of, a new opportunity, the likelihood that they're going to be blown away and be ready to move forward. Let's continue here, Mark. So now the next piece of it is, okay, you don't get them on the phone on the first phone call. Maybe you did have your speed to lead on point. Maybe they filled out that lead form and they spilled coffee and now they're distracted. They didn't answer their phone, right? So now we're going to get into the follow-up, So how important is the follow-up? What should it look like? I think it varies, depending on the product and the business. But, a lot of the times, you want to really that first day, as, they inquire that day, you want to have a couple. I'm not saying you want to call somebody 10 times, although I'm sure there's companies that do. I don't say you want to call them once or twice. I'm sure there's companies that do that with some level of success. But you need to really analyze your data and see, okay, somebody came in, didn't get them on the phone the first time. Am I going to try them again in 10 minutes, in 30 minutes? Am I going to try again an hour after that, maybe push beyond lunchtime? Am I going to try again before the day is out? So having a cadence where you can consistently be following up and automating that as much as you can, I think will take you very far. And Mark, I want to divert to you with some data you see here. I'm sure you work with clients all the time on this. And I want to talk too, in parallel with this, about, what you're saying on the phone call. And we're going to get to that in a minute too. But, we saw, in the solar industry that as you're reaching out, the the people who the companies who were more aggressive ended up winning the conversation, so you want to make sure that you're constantly having something in place to reach out to these people. I lost my train of thought and now it's back. Sorry about that. What we saw was when we first started, right, we had started the call center from scratch. I'd never worked in a call center before. We were sending out lists. So we're saying, okay, you get your 50 leads, you get your 20 leads, you're on real-time leads. You know what? These 3 reps are really doing great. We just turned on a new lead source. Have them get the email so that when the new lead comes in, they're getting it as close to speed to lead as we can. So we had all the proper concepts there. The problem was that even though the rep made the first phone call and we defined our cadence to everybody, and we had meetings after meeting after meeting. Listen, you're calling them first right away, then 10 minutes later, then an hour later, then 3 hours later. When you leave it up to your agents and your reps to make those decisions, you'll find very quickly that it's not happening, right? And it's not because they don't want it to happen. Maybe there's so many variables, which I won't get into right now.
Resistance.
Exactly. Resistance, they want the fresh new thing, and the thing from 3 hours ago isn't as attractive or appealing, So having a way where you can build a cadence where the system, first of all, it's two pronged, right? Where the system can refeed that lead in based on certain criteria. Okay, it was this disposition, call it again in an hour. It was this disposition, it's call 10th number 3, call it again in 3 hours. But also the decentralization of giving lead opportunities to one rep or to a group of reps that have never spoken with this person before, So, Mark, I'd like to hear some data you've gathered here. I'm sure you've got a lot to say on this topic.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned about making sure that you're not leaving it up to the reps is spot on. And the reason is not because they're not capable or because they don't want to do the work. The reason is decision fatigue. If every single person you reach out to, you're having to recalculate and say, okay, so when do I reach out to them? Like, what do I say? What do I do? Like, that is going to make you as a seller far less effective throughout the purpose, the course of the day. Like, imagine you have to go through a whole algorithm of what do I do 50, 100 times a day, exhausting. And then
Sure.
you're not going to be in the spot to actually deliver on that conversation. So what Chaz says
Mm.
around really don't leave it up to reps, I could not agree more. And let me say, if you have if your sellers right now are managing their follow-ups by putting a time on their calendar, so that they put a time and they mark on the calendar and go, oh yeah, I'm going to put a follow-up for February, so I'll just remind myself, call Jim in February. If that's what's happening and you've been looking for a sign to say, I need to change this, this is
This
your
is
sign.
your sign. Yeah, this is your sign.
This is
Yes.
your sign. That needs to be a centralized system that they're not sitting there going, okay, yeah, 2:05, call Jim. 2:05 goes by. They were in the bathroom. They forgot that calendar event is gone, and then they call, and then Jim
Oh,
doesn't pick up again. And then do they make another invite? Are they now creating 8 or 10 invites for every follow-up? Get rid of it, centralize it. It's the time.
yes,
This is your sign.
please do. This is it, and we can show you some things too, maybe here that are quick that we can help with this process. Another thing too, and I'm not talking negatively about anybody. It's just the nature of what I've seen on all different sales team across hundreds, probably at this point, of different companies. Once the sales team understands that's how your process is internally, they find ways to latch on to opportunities and try and hold on to their. It's like they're collecting, like sticks. They're building a nest or something. They want to hold on to all their leads as long as possible. I'm like,
So true.
these are mine. These are mine. I'm going to work on these when I think I should work on them. You know what? And what they're really doing is lighting them on fire, because when there's competitors out there and people are shopping, they're not going to wait for, your team to reach out, in 2 months. And even, it's funny, internally, we say, listen, if somebody wants to be reached out to in 2 months, reach out to them in 3 weeks. Check in 3 weeks, see how they are. They might tell you, hey, Mark, I told you I'm not ready for 2 months. Are you out of your mind? But the amount of times that we've done that, and they've been like, you know what? I'm glad you called. We're actually ready to go right now. Let's get things going, So
I
staying
think
in front of people and being more aggressive, I think, always works better.
I think we underestimate sometimes as sellers the importance of making it easy for the customer. Like,
Yeah.
there are chores that I need to do, oh, call the telephone company, Call the airline, go get, we put down a deposit a couple years ago on a Mini Cooper. And we put down,
Nice.
they said 250 fully refundable deposit. And, a sales rep will reach out to you, put down a couple years ago. I need to go get that 250 back. We didn't do the Mini Cooper. We did something else. But
Yep.
like, I got to go get it back. And it's just like, I'm just not taking the time to do it.
Sure.
And we forget how when something plops into your lap you get a phone call right now on your phone, you answer it, and the thing that you've been meaning to do, the appointment you've been meaning to book, the thing that like you called once, but then you kind of forgot about it, and that rep's been hitting me up every few months. But we forget that when you actually get that, the sales rep is making your life easier by bringing the thing you asked for
Sure.
to you, bringing it to
Sure.
you. So like being more aggressive so long as you are doing something valuable for the customer and you're like putting yourself in their shoes. You're like, hey, is this making their life easier? Am I
Right.
giving them something that they didn't otherwise have? Am I able to give them some sort of knowledge or information about how the industry works, what their various product offerings are, like, what other folks are doing in the space, how they should be thinking through making a decision? Like, am I able to do any of that? And if you can, like, do the interaction. Like, it's almost always worth it. We say anytime you have something valuable to share with the customers, feel free to share it.
That's it. And don't mistake aggressive for, calling somebody 15 times in a day or blowing them up with 15 emails and 20 texts a day. But a consistent, cadence where you're reaching out and bringing value. I've done a bunch of these events and people ask, oh, so you're telling me I should call somebody 15 times until they answer the phone? No, that's actually going to work against you, because when they finally pick up, they're not going to want to hear anything. They won't even listen to who your company is. I don't want to order a pizza. Stop calling me. Goodbye. And they're going to be gone. But it's so important. And I also too, I find our team falling into this at times internally, where they're like, oh yes, what one works for you Wednesday? All right. Do you want to reach out to me and let me know? And if you're going to have somebody else that you're trying to present value to, put something on them for them to remember, to send a calendar invite, to follow up. Just a little piece I have, and Mark, you may or may not agree, but you should always be the one initializing the contact, planning the follow up, doing the follow up, sending the calendar invite. Put it all in your control. Don't let anything sit that could potentially be lost or forgotten about.
Yep.
And I feel very
Yep.
strong on that one.
Chaz, I want to dig into that. It was one of the things I was thinking about most coming into this session. And then shout out to Ryan. Ryan, good to see you, buddy. I see we have a question here on handling outbound DIDs. So Chaz, we'll jump on that in just a sec.
Sure.
Number one most important principle to convert your leads. The number one most important principle is decide on your non-negotiables.
Mm,
Decide for your team, for your reps, what are the things we always do? This is a point of pride. We always do this. And one of them should be that you are proposing times, specific times right there
yes.
in the call. There is no, I'll call you back, you call me back, let's figure it out. If
Mm.
someone says they're running late to a meeting, I got to go, and you say, hey, perfect. I just checked 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Should I send it to you? Yes, no, you good for 2? Like, like even if they're trying to rush you off the phone, you get a time out there.
You just
Get a time out
created, Mark. You know what you did there? You created a yes or a no question. The person did not need to think. They did not need to come up with a time, look at their schedule. Maybe they looked at it real quick because you proposed the time, but you took what would have become a dialogue and turned it into a yes or a no question.
Yep. Yep. So you as a team have to decide what are the non-negotiables. This is how we operate. This is how our sales team does business. We always propose times in the meeting. We always ask the person to pull their calendar up. We always get some morsel of pain before we give a value proposition. Always, if they say, "What is this about? What's your company about?" We say, "Well, let me ask." Do you ever notice that your folks are handling calls and that they're messing up objections that you wish they would hit, that they are not closing the appointments that you wish they would, any stuff
Or
like that you ever notice? Because that's basically what we do. So notice how I flipped it around and turned it into a pain, right?
yeah,
And so one of our principles is we do not deliver the value proposition before we've gotten an ounce of pain. And if you have to kind of tease what the value proposition is, if you have to tease it in order to get some sort of pain, awesome. But that's a non-negotiable. So set up your non-negotiables, decide how you all do your interactions, how you do business. And then you need to have the tools, things like Balto that allow you to look at all your interactions and see, are my non-negotiables being hit? When I'm
sure.
trying to see, did they ask for the meeting? Did they propose times? I need to see that. I need to see every interaction where there was a real connect. Did this happen, past maybe 30 seconds of call duration? You need to have the visibility to be able to go in and do that.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in, because now we're at the heart, right? We're at
Yep.
the heart of this. We're talking about your follow up, automating your follow up, decentralizing your follow up so that it's multiple people have an opportunity to reach out to these opportunities and these leads. So now you've got your speed to lead system down. You've got your follow up cadence automated. You're reaching out. You're making connection. You're getting people to answer the phone and talk to you. How do you optimize what you're saying to them? Being consistent, right? Making sure that your team has the ability to stay consistent with what you've proven and works. And how do you know what works, right? You might try a script, you might try and do something, and it sounds really good when you role play it with your buddies in the office, and then you're like, oh, that's it. This is our script. But Mark, I think this is where you and Balto really shine. What do you see in terms of not just creating the script and seeing what's going to work well, but measuring and monitoring that over time and at scale?
Yep. The key is measurement. The key is turning things that previously are kind of intangible, like what objections are we getting? By the way, turns out most of the time when you're in an interaction, someone will give you more than one objection. So most of the time, I'm busy is a combination of I'm busy and not interested. Most of the time, call me back is a combination of I'm busy and not interested, right? Most of the time, you've had the wrong person is a combination of I'm not interested and don't know enough about your solution, right? So most of the time, these objections are actually multiple objections. So the first thing you got to do is figure out like the analytics on what are people communicating, and what are they communicating as their first line objection. Then when the representative digs in and tries to learn more, are they giving a second line objection, a third? Like, are they saying, oh, I'm busy, and then someone says, oh, actually, let me just I can schedule time to call you back. And then do they say, well, what's this about? How often does that happen?
Right,
Well,
yeah.
obviously, I'm busy. Well, maybe I actually freed up if you tell me what this is about, right?
Right.
So the first thing is going to the data and seeing in my interactions, show me for every single objection, every single product mention, every single thing that folks say they're interested in, show me the data on how often this is coming up in calls. Because the last thing you want to do is have an entire process where you're training people on an objection that you only get 2% of the time. Like, focus on the stuff that you hear every single time. Focus on the stuff that's make or break. So I would say the first thing is go into one of these, technologies like Balto and look at what the data says on here's all my objections. Number one, I'm busy, happens 42% of the time. Number two, it's someone else, happens 30% of the time. And then you can click in. You can actually click in, and when they say, oh, it's someone else, see the examples. How often they say it's someone else because you got the wrong number, someone else. How often they say it's someone else because someone else makes a decision. How often they say it's someone else because they literally have no idea about that functional area and they don't even possibly know who deals with that. So that's the sort of thing you need to do is like get the data, get the precision, and then from there, pick your biggest categories. It's like any other business project you're working on. Find the stuff where the lion's share of the objections happen, the lion's share of reps. You can even ask in Balto, when the rep does not get an appointment, what are the most common reasons? And see those
That's
most common reasons,
powerful.
and then train on that.
And the starting point is you got to have a solution that can analyze these calls at scale, right? Otherwise, what do you have? You have a couple call recordings. You've got a guy, or in a previous life, we had maybe 5 to 10 people on the team that are sitting there with their headset on for hours and hours of time listening to calls. Maybe they've got a scorecard that they're going through and analyzing the calls. So having a system like Balto, which I've seen has been one of the top in the industry. I mean, it's just I'm flabbergasted when I see you guys because I've seen you just come up so quickly and so amazingly in this space, and that's why it's an honor to be here. But having a system that's going to do that for you and analyze the calls, and now they've got AI and they've got all these different things to analyze the call, what's being said. It's just about getting those data points. If you're flying blind, you don't know what you need to address, what you need to change. Training new reps, there's a big hurdle of them understanding, where they're going wrong or where they're going right. And Mark, you and your vision in Balto has solved that. So
Thank you, buddy.
that's the starting point, is to have Balto or have a solution like Balto that can really give you the data points.
Thank you. I want to make sure we get to Ryan's question here.
Yes.
Ryan, thanks for it. How are you guys handling keeping outbound DIDs clean and maintaining number reputation?
Awesome. Thank
Yes.
you, Ryan. Yeah, it's a loaded topic that I could probably do a whole event on, but it's really not that complex. So when you look at your DIDs and your DID pool, the first and foremost thing you want to do is get your numbers. We always recommend getting them registered, and there's a number of different endpoints you need to go to for the different carriers: Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, and others. So registering them with the carriers is important up front, because what it's basically saying is, listen, I own these phone numbers. They belong to me. I'm a legal, US based business entity, and here I am. If you think about all the bad traffic out there, spammers, spoofers, fraudsters, scammers, they don't want you to know who they are. They're never going to go to a carrier and say, hey, here I am. I'm trying to give people Publishers Clearinghouse and take all their money, and get their information. They're not going to do that, So that's always the first step we recommend, is getting them registered with the carriers. Then you'd want to dial on them, lightly, right? You'd want to start using them maybe for some manual dials. You'd want to keep your dial count low and then slowly move that up over time. And the reason for that is, a lot of the times, not so much once you've registered your numbers, but maybe you have unregistered numbers. It's hard to put it all in a box because so many different things happen with caller IDs these days. But what they do is, when they see fresh traffic from a number, and at this point, there's no new numbers left in the world. Every number has been used probably at some point by somebody, right? Whether it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 months ago. But when I say new, meaning the carriers are now seeing phone calls coming into their networks from that number. When they don't recognize you, immediately they kind of put the hammer down and say, hold on a second, let's mark these guys' phone calls potentially. We don't know who you are yet. Let's see what happens, So a lot of times at Call Tools, new customers will come on, they'll test their phone number. It'll show up, potential spam, whatever. Hey, your numbers suck. What happened? It's a brand new phone number. It's showing up this way. I have to go through the whole education every time. No. Listen, keep using that number for a couple days and then test it again. Hey, you're right. It's not showing up that way anymore. Why is that? Basically, what's happening is they're trying to prevent, people from getting a whole bunch of brand new numbers, using them for a couple of days, and then getting a whole new batch of numbers again. They call that the turn and burn. So the only way they do that is when it's fresh and has no reputation, they treat it like it has almost like a negative reputation, So anyway, to answer your question fully, and it is kind of long-winded because I want to provide value to everybody watching, that it's not a simple answer here, but registering your numbers, warming them up with the carriers, and then, obviously maintaining them over time. There's a lot of systems out there right now that you can check the health of your caller ID and see if you're being marked on different, networks and different carriers. But yeah, I mean, that's really the best practice, So, and then there's more that you could do there. And inside of the Call Tool system, we do have the ability to limit how frequently each phone number gets used. So you can cap it on a per minute, per hour, or per day usage. So you can say, use this phone number at most once every 2 minutes, 10 times an hour, and no more than 100 times in a day. And then it will prevent that number from getting overutilized, because that's one of the metrics they look at as well, which is how many calls are you putting on that phone number in a day? If a phone number is making 5,000 outbound dials, there's a good likelihood the carriers might, mark that as negative. So
Yep.
I hope that was a good answer for you guys.
And Chaz, I'll give you a shout out here. If you're, in the audience and you're hearing this, I think it's very clear, like, don't screw this up. Like,
Yeah.
clearly there's people and there's companies that know how to do this and have a lot of know-how. Don't just like tackle it on your own and then screw up all your numbers and then have a few months where the reps are yelling at you and you don't really know why. And you're like Googling, how do I get my reputation better? And like, just work with somebody like Call Tools. Don't screw it up.
Oh,
If
thank you,
there's so
Mark.
many things that can go wrong, make this thing not
Mark.
go wrong.
Thank you, Mark. And it is a slippery slope. If you choose to take shortcuts and maybe not have enough phone numbers for your volume, you'll end up marking all of them. And now you're starting at ground zero again. So doing things right and taking the proper steps is so important. And thank you, Mark, so much for that. And I'm seeing here, are we getting close to the end here, Mark?
We are. So Chaz, let's
Yeah.
wrap it up. If folks want to learn more about Call Tools, where should they go? And how do they get in touch with you guys?
Awesome. It's very simple. You go to calltools.com. You have the ability to check out, our website, see some of our features. You can set up a demo right there. My name's Chaz Tedesco. You can email me directly. I'll do the short email so I don't have to spell the last name. Chaz as in zebra, not D. I do not want to be Chad. There's a whole connotation about Chad out there these days. And I'm trying to stay out of that. So Chaz as in zebra at calltools.com. And my best phone number is 973-370-5711. So we'd love to hear from you. And again, we're big on sharing education, sharing knowledge, just like we did here today with Mark and Balto. So even if we can't find a way to work together, we want to give you value in everything you're doing for your outbound and for your call center.
Awesome. And we are balto.ai. That's how you find us. You go to balto.ai and fill out a demo request there if you want to talk to us. And actually, we have a little how did you hear about us box, which pro tip has been super helpful. Put here on the Call Tools webinar, something like that. And then I'll ask the Balto team to send you something nice and give you a shout out. But let's see it. Let's see the Call to Balto webinar generate the pipeline we're telling you all about. Let's hopefully generate for ourselves. So it's balto.ai. Sign up for a demo. We'd love to show you guys what we built.
Awesome. It's been incredible, Mark, like I said. And I'll end with this, actually. We do integrate. We didn't bring this up at all during the phone call. So Call Tools and Balto do have an amazing integration. Both platforms work very well together. And Mark, it's a pleasure. I think we'll have to do another one. I felt like I had a lot more we could have kept going here. But I'm happy we brought some value here. And I hope everyone in the audience got incredible value as well.
We should do another one. Thank you, buddy. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure.
See ya.
Take care.